Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. A little bit of rain moving into my area for today. It may start raining before I end this walk, which is fine with me. We need the rain. I would say most of the country is probably in that position. I know that there's some areas that's gotten a little too much, but I think most of you are like us. And, any rain that we can get right now is just fine and dandy with us. It's not been as bad this year as I think a lot of people thought in my area when it comes to rain. Actually, it's been better this year than last year. Last year was pretty rough with the dryness. But anyways, got some moving in today, and looks like a full day of rain. The other day, I don't remember when it was, but in a video, I mentioned how, we're weaponizing our currency, the US dollar, and that's one of the reasons why we're watching a lot of the things happen in the financial world. We have an amount of debt right now that's just mind-boggling. If you go back, I think we get so conditioned and used to hearing numbers of how much debt that it just doesn't even register to us. But, if you look at the amount of debt we had during the Obama administration versus now, it's like double or more than double. And then if you look at how much that we're accruing, the rate of accruing debt that we're at, we're talking an additional $1 trillion a quarter is what they're saying. That we're going to be going into debt somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 billion a day. A day. From now, at least for the next 20 years or so. $5 billion a day in debt. We're already at like 33 trillion, and that's not including the unfunded debt, which is much more than that. And then, of course, we're using our currency around the world more and more to push very, very leftist policies. And as much as many don't want to believe it, most of the world's countries are very traditional, very religious. They may be either Christian or Muslim, but either way, most of the rest of the world is very traditional in their beliefs. Only in a few places, and it's pretty much the West, do we have this very progressive Marxist liberal ideology. In fact, even in the countries that espouse and openly adopted Marxist theories, and they're communist, they're even very traditional. And so when America is now using its currency to push these ideas, it's going to cause our dollar to lose even more favor. We've had the credit rating for the U.S. drop. Like I just said, lots and lots of debt. And then, just like I said would happen, just yesterday, the IMF, which is the U.S. dollar, okay? The IMF announced that they are no longer issuing any loans to Uganda because Uganda just recently passed some legislation to outlaw and criminalize transgenderism in various ways. If you remember a few weeks back, Joe Biden was criticizing that, saying that, we have to do something about it, that there's going to be some kind of punishment for that. Well, they're not going to get any loans in Uganda. Where's the incentive for Uganda to continue using the US dollar? If they're going to be punished for their beliefs, punished for their traditional beliefs, where's the incentive? Well, of course, there is none. They're going to go with, something like BRICS. You watch how fast they switch over to using different currency, because it's not in their benefit any longer to use the US dollar. That's why we're seeing, in a lot of ways, all of these countries start to line up and say, hey, everything from South America to the Middle East, in Africa saying that they want to jump on this bandwagon of BRICS with the new currency, which is, according to the news, going to be announced and revealed at the end of this month. More and more countries are going to see that. More and more countries are going to see that it's not just dangerous to use the US dollar because the US dollar is becoming more fragile. It's dangerous to use the US dollar because there's this punishment if you don't follow all of these very woke, left, socially progressive, evil ideology, then you'll be punished. Iran just passed some laws that I can't remember exactly, but it was Iraq. Iraq passed laws that they can't use the word homosexual on media, but it has to be like deviant, sexual deviant or something like that. They're gonna get punished for that if they continue using the US dollar. There's a pattern here, and the pattern leads to what I believe is the collapse of the US dollar. And I know many of you believe the same way. And this isn't the only reason why it would collapse. I'm just showing you one of the very possible reasons of why it could collapse or what's leading to it. We have to be prepared for that. We have to be ready for the US dollar losing its prominence, I would say faster than what the experts agree. Even Janet Yellen several weeks back, when asked, didn't say that the US dollar will never lose its prominence, will never, not be the global currency. She said something to the effect of, well, we could see that happening over time, but it'll take years for that to happen. Well, I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight per se, but I think it's going to happen a lot faster than what they say. There's all kinds of indication globally abroad that countries are starting to see the problem with the United States and the amount of debt, the spending, and the policies that we're taking. And less people seem to be interested in using our currency. Now, of course, it's just going to open the doorway for the U.S. to say, what? Our currency isn't any good anymore. Well, we need a new one. Oh, guess what? We just happen to have this digital currency lying around. Let's use it. You and I have to be prepared for all of those scenarios. Look at Venezuela as a good example. Their currency hyperinflated and became worthless. It's still worthless, but at least the country's starting to kind of stabilize a little bit now. But in the first few years of that happening, Venezuela just went absolutely nuts. And you can't say, well, that's some developing third world country. That's not true. At the time, Venezuela was the second largest economy in the Americas. They were the second largest purchaser of like Ford pickups and stuff. They were a very developed country, okay? Modern and developed, prosperous country. And it was almost overnight that they collapsed. The dollar, their currency collapsed. And along with that, everything just went haywire. If you look at crime rates almost overnight exploded. And when I say exploded, I'm talking like crime rate increases of like tens of thousands of percentages points. Just almost overnight. People were starving. They actually called it the Venezuelan diet. You can look up online, there's people, the year prior, they're healthy with a little extra weight on them like me, and then the next year, they look like they just come out of a death camp. This could possibly happen here. We have to be prepared for that. That's why myself and many others are constantly pushing you to stock up, get your stuff. One way to help yourself when it comes to the actual money is to have real money. Don't be so dependent upon anything that's based upon or dependent upon the US dollar. Excuse me. Have some gold and silver tucked away. Now, I know some people agree and some people want to argue with me on this. I kind of fall right in the middle. I'm not saying don't get it, and I'm not saying get a whole bunch of it. I think everyone should have a little bit. What's a little bit? Well, it's probably dependent upon your wealth. If you're worth $10 million, you probably need a lot more of it. If you're worth $1,000, probably not as much. But I would definitely have some put away. I mean, what do you think? It's funny because they try to tell us, oh, you don't need to have gold and silver. That's not what you need to have. Really? Why do all the central banks and all the wealthy people have stockpiles of gold and silver? There's numerous very, very wealthy people that have publicly stated that a good portion of their wealth is in gold. You know, China has been buying it up by the tons every month, tens of tons every month of gold. Why do you think they're doing that? Because they know how important gold is. And so for you, the average person, I would certainly have a little stockpile put away. A lot of people ask what kind, how to do it. You just get online and buy it, or go down to your local coin shop and buy it. If you don't know where to buy it, there's a link down in the description below. It's a company I've used many times. Had great success with them every time. But you know, you got to be smart. Try to buy at the right time so that your worthless fiat currency gets as much as you possibly can in that moment. People always ask what to get. I'm no expert, but don't worry about anything that has any kind of collector value. Stay away from that stuff. Numismatic coins. You're not buying collector value. You're buying silver, or you're buying the gold. You want the stuff that you get the most for your money. The most metal. Bullion is really good. You get probably the best deal with bars, but they're a little bit more difficult to transfer, meaning that you want to try to buy a loaf of bread and you walk in with a 5-ounce silver bar, it's going to be a little hard. So I would also diversify what you buy by getting what's called constitutional junk silver. That's American silver coins that were produced prior to 1964, 64 and back, quarters, dimes, halves, that kind of stuff. Those are a lot better for if you just need to buy a loaf of bread from some guy. But make sure that you have a little bit of that stuff, but it's a caveat. I would have my other preps pretty much in line before I do that. At least something going on. If your very first thing is to go out and buy silver and gold, that's probably not a good idea. Because if you can't survive or you can't defend so that you can use that silver and gold, then there's no point in having it. So make sure that you have your other preps at least somewhat working on. It doesn't mean you have to be completely done, but at least be working on them. Have some kind of food supply, some kind of medical, some kind of general supplies, you know, your tools, things like that. Have some way to defend it, that kind of stuff. And then start looking into what you can get metal-wise to put away. Because the US dollar is going to collapse, and when it does, you know, everyone complains about, oh, I'm paying $25, $27, $28 an ounce for silver, or I'm paying $2,000, $2,200 an ounce for gold. Eventually, it's going to be like $500 an ounce for silver, and you know, several thousand, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 an ounce for gold, and maybe even more as the US dollar just continues to fail. Oh, it's going to put up a good fight, and they're going to try to milk it along, but eventually, when the time is right, they're going to let it go so that they can bring about their digital currency. And we have to do everything we can to avoid getting sucked into that digital currency, because once we start using that, once we get used to that, most of the freedoms that you've ever known and that still exist, they're gone. They're going to be able to control everything. control your life, where you go, how you spend your money, everything. You're going to control it. So I would start making plans and acting accordingly to get ready for that day, because as the United States continues down this path of weaponizing its currency for these evil, satanic, progressive ideas, we're going to see more countries jump ship. It's time to get your houses in order, folks. It's time to prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.